start the meeting of the Board of the Waterworks Trustees for September 25th at 3:30 p.m. I guess I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The second item we have will be for public comments. At this time, anybody, public, staff, anyone that would like to make a public comment, you have 5 minutes, each person. Okay, I guess we have no public comments. We'll go to action items, and our first action item, one of our customers would like to speak on our backflow prevention at 435 East Grand. Gary?
Well, I'd like to maybe start first with just kind of a quick overview as to how we got to where we're at today on this item. We've been working with the owners of the business at 435 East Grand in an attempt to have them install a backflow prevention device on their water service. This device is required due to the fact that the business utilizes a post-mix carbonator or a soda drink dispenser in their operation. The customers do feel that they should not be required to install a backflow preventer and have appealed the process through the various steps that we have in our rules and regulations. First step, they did make an appeal to what we call our Des Moines Waterworks appeal panel. That consisted of Amy Kaler, Ted Corrigan, and myself. That meeting was held back in June, and then we submitted a written response back to them on June 21st denying their appeal. The customer responded by email that they wanted to appeal to the next level. They were alerted that the next level was to submit a written appeal to the CEO and general manager. Randy did get the appeal on July 22nd, or July 12th, I'm sorry, and then responded to the customers on July 20th that he was sustaining the conclusion reached by the appeals committee. The customer is alerted that they could appear before the board of trustees as the final step in the appeal process, and they've requested to do that at today's meeting. So with that.
Okay. Would the customer like to come to the stand and introduce yourself and your address?
Good afternoon, board. My name is Cornelius Crawley. I am a representative for Lime Lounge 435 East Grand. Just some supplemental information regarding the background. We did have this facility is a bar. We had a change of use. It used to be an office space. We had a change of use which required full inspections across the board, plumbing, electrical, building, zoning, and so forth. At that point in time, we did install, in fact, a backflow prevention device which is still operational and installed. It's a double-check backflow prevention device which is installed on the post-mix carbonation system, which was informed to us by Coca-Cola, who installed the post-mix carbonator and beverage gun. We installed that. All plumbing inspections were passed. All inspections were passed. We were issued a certificate of occupancy. Shortly thereafter, or at some point thereafter, after all inspections were passed and we were issued our certificate of occupancy, we were informed by Des Moines Waterworks that we were required to install yet a second backflow prevention device in addition to our already installed dual-check Watts industry standard backflow prevention device, which is installed on the only post-mix carbonation system in the building. As was already mentioned, we went through appeals process as we felt that this was unnecessary to install a second backflow prevention device and unsupported by the code. And I would point to specifically the Iowa Code section 103A.19, subsection D1, a certificate of occupancy or use for a building or structure constructed in accordance with the provisions of the state building code shall certify that the building or structure conforms to the requirements of the code. The certificate shall be in the form of the government body and the governmental subdivision prescribes. Subsection 2 states that every certificate of occupancy or use shall, until set aside or vacated by the Board of Review, Director, or a court of competent jurisdiction, be binding and conclusive upon all state and local agencies as to matters set forth, and no order, direction, or requirements at variance therewith shall be made or issued by any other state or local agency. We would contend that a certificate of occupancy is a conclusive proof that we have complied with state code, which is supported by Iowa code, which is superior to state or to local or Des Moines Waterworks rules and regulations. And by Des Moines city issuance of the certificate of occupancy certifying that we have complied with state building codes and state plumbing codes, we are in compliance with any substandard codes below that.
Okay, Gary?
Well, Ted Corrigan and his staff are the ones that kind of head up this whole backflow program for Des Moines Waterworks, and so I'd like to ask Ted to kind of present some details on our process this time.
I guess I'd like to start, before I comment specifically on this issue, I'd like to start with just a couple of minutes of background on backflow and our program here in Des Moines. First of all, cross connections and the backflow that can result from cross connections are a very real issue for water utilities and their customers, not just here in Des Moines, but across the country, in fact, around the world. There are incidents on a fairly regular basis. There have been incidents in Des Moines. I think some of the information that was presented in the board packet described some of the incidents that have happened in Des Moines and some of the issues that we've had to deal with related to cross connections and backflow. And in fact, the U.S. EPA and the Science Advisory Board recognize backflow from cross connections as the single greatest threat to the quality of drinking water in the distribution system after it has left the treatment plant. So backflow is a real issue. It's not just our issue, it's a nationwide, worldwide issue that we're trying to address. Now, recognizing that fact, most states, including Iowa, have included backflow prevention requirements in their code, be it in the plumbing code or their public health codes or what have you. And in most cases, as in Iowa, they require that the customer be responsible for protecting any potential cross connections within their facility. And again, in most cases, as in Iowa, those backflow prevention codes are two-pronged. The first prong is called isolation, and the second prong is containment. Now, isolation relates to installing a device specifically on each individual potentially hazardous fixture in the building, be it a post-mix carbonator, a boiler, a chemical mixing tank, whatever the case may be. There are hundreds of examples. There might be one potentially hazardous fixture in the building, there might be two, there might be 24, just kind of depending on what the facility is, but they're installed right at the point of use on the individual potentially hazardous fixture. But recognizing that facilities that have potentially hazardous fixtures often tend to add additional potentially hazardous fixtures, they move fixtures, they replace fixtures. The backflow preventers on those fixtures can fail. Any number of things can happen, and recognizing that, the industry has settled upon this two-pronged approach, and the second prong is containment. And containment consists of installing an approved, testable backflow device at the service entrance, which will protect the public water supply from anything that might go wrong within the facility. So that's kind of an overview of backflow and how it works. Now, 20 years ago, Des Moines Waterworks worked with the City of Des Moines and the State Health Department to establish the process that we still use today that governs how the two prongs of this program, which is in the state plumbing code, will be implemented. The isolation prong of the program, which addresses the individual fixtures, the individual devices on the fixtures within the building, is enforced by the City of Des Moines. And the containment provisions in the plumbing code, which involve installing an approved testable device at the service entrance to protect the public water supply, those provisions of the program are enforced by Des Moines Waterworks, which makes sense because we are the public water supplier, and those devices protect the public water supply. Now, our program is triggered or initiated by two things, either a request for new service or a change in use of an existing service. In the case of a new service, someone requests a tap, we review it. The backflow provisions are established at that time, and it's constructed that way, and it's pretty straightforward. In the case of a change of use, when someone wants to change the use of a facility, we're notified of that. A survey is sent to that customer automatically, a water usage inventory. They fill out that survey, tell us how they're going to use water, and then we use that information to determine whether a backflow prevention device will be required for containment or not. That's how the program has worked for the last 20 years with basically no changes. Now, in this case, this was a change of use, as was mentioned. We were notified of that. We sent a survey to the property, and it was returned, but it was not completely filled out. And when we get a survey that's not filled out completely, or if the survey indicates they have a potentially hazardous fixture, or if they don't return the survey, or 2 subsequent surveys, we send them an install notice, which basically says, you have a fixture that needs to be protected, you're going to have a containment device. Or, we don't know what you have, and so you need to install a device. And if you have questions, you can contact us. So, in this case, the survey wasn't filled out completely, so an install notice was sent. Our records don't indicate any communication back. We sent 2 subsequent install notices. Our records don't show any communication back. And so that property went on a list of facilities that we needed to go out and physically inspect to determine whether they needed a device or not. We did ultimately inspect the facility, determine that they had a post-mix carbonator, which does have an isolation device on it, appropriate for isolation. It's not testable. It's not approved for containment. And so we notified them that they needed a containment device to be in compliance with our rules and regulations, the city plumbing code and the state plumbing code. Now, in our review of this situation throughout the appeals process, we believe that a containment device is required. There is a potentially hazardous fixture there which is protected with an isolation device, but a containment device is required in case of all the potential problems that I listed. And also, because our program is basically just an implementation of the state plumbing code. We are really not even at liberty to give them a variance to the state plumbing code. We are implementing this code, which we don't really even have authority to grant a variance to. So our perspective is that a device is required and it should be installed as a condition of service.
Questions up there?
May I follow?
Sure, you'd like to.
Before you do that, I want to make an observation.
Okay.
From a legal standpoint, the code section that Mr. Qualley referenced is a part of the building code provisions of the Iowa Code and doesn't preclude enforcement of the plumbing code issue here. It's just a non sequitur. The certificate of occupancy does not deprive this board of the jurisdiction to apply the part that this board has exclusive jurisdiction over, which is the backflow provisions in the plumbing code, which are delegated to the waterworks, as Mr. Corrigan has said.
Did you want to say just a short thing, and then we'll get questions from the board?
Sure. Just to follow up, I mean, I understand you mentioned a lot of history and reasoning for the implementation of this program, which is really irrelevant in this circumstance. And I would argue that, sorry, I don't remember your name, but his interpretation of the code section that I referenced is inaccurate as well. I mean, it's very clear, it's set forth, and there's a specific code that relevant to administration and enforcement, and this is one of those matters. The City of Des Moines does have the authority. This is an Iowa State plumbing code matter, and as Mr. Corrigan mentioned prior, basically, the Des Moines Water Works is enforcing Iowa Plumbing Code, which has already been certified by the City of Des Moines as compliant through the certificate of occupancy that we've received and I have here today. This is an Iowa State Code matter. It's governed by the Iowa State Code, and this section that I previously alluded to references that specifically, that this is governed and the Iowa State Code has exclusive jurisdiction over this. Our main issue here is we've been completely forthwith, and I mean, we've been completely forthcoming and, you know, tried to comply with all the codes. The issue here is we went through all the inspection processes. We've complied with everything that was ever told to us. The Des Moines City Waterworks inspector never once informed us of this requirement. No one informed us of this requirement prior to receiving a certificate of occupancy. We complied with all codes that we were known to exist, and at the point of the certificate of occupancy being issued to our establishment, that is the final and conclusive say that our building is in compliance with all state plumbing codes, all state building codes, etc. Now, just looking at it from a normal standpoint, the reason for this is because there has to be a cutoff point before agencies can come back on businesses and say you're not in compliance. There has to be a stopping point at which there is documentation that says you are in compliance unless you add new fixtures or change your establishment, that you are in compliance. And that's what the Iowa State Code specifies, that a certificate of occupancy is that document that says at this point in time, your building is compliant as it stands today, which is what we complied with, and we intend to argue at a state level should this particular instance fail. So, I mean, this is one of those instances where we attempted to comply with all codes, and after the fact, we were contacted by the Des Moines Waterworks and told us that we needed another device installed that already basically performs the same essential function that our device already performs. And just a side note, there is another program that's relatively close to the same situation as this, and it's the WRA, which enforces the grease trap enforcement. They enforce that through the city of Des Moines and require compliance with that requirement, which we complied with, and that could easily be done in this case as well, but it was failed to happen in this particular instance. So we are in compliance. We have a certificate of occupancy stating that we're in compliance, and state plumbing code applies here, and we're in compliance with such code. So,
Thank you. Could I have a motion from one of the board, and then we'll have discussion?
I would make a motion that we sustain the staff's recommendation that the device be installed.
You have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
This talks about there were 3 notices sent shortly after the water usage inventory was completed, and I didn't hear you say if you received those or didn't receive.
we received a notice at some point. I believe they were sent to the building, which never gets delivered. They were received at some point after we had already received our certificate of occupancy and were open for business. So, I mean, we don't have a delivery.
But you did receive the notices.
We don't have a mail slot at the actual business. So if anything sent
Did you
to
get water bills?
I can't tell you that offhand.
Okay.
I mean, our water bills are current. I don't know. I mean, I don't handle that personally, whether we receive water bills. I don't know how that's relevant.
Gary, what address were you?
Well, these, the letters that we have, and there's copies in your board packet, they're all addressed to Lime Lounge at a P.O. box. They're not addressed at Fort.
And that's where you get your water bills that you pay?
Like I said, I don't have that information offhand.
Okay. I'll call the question. Unless there's any other discussion.
Any other questions? Or any other questions? Sue?
I'm sorry, I'll withdraw that. Did you have another question?
No, I was going to ask about that.
Sue's called the question. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hear no opposition, that the board supports the staff. Thank you. So we'll go to item 3C.
3B.
That sounds a little screwy.
3B.
3B, okay, sorry. And this would be the Water Revenue Funding Bonds Series 2012A and 2012B.
Yes, this item was discussed in the 2012 board meeting, and the analysis of both of those series indicated that there would be a significant amount of savings to be had through the refinancing effort. The estimate for the Series 2004A bonds was $593,000, and for the 2006 bonds, the savings was estimated at $2.3 million. For these bonds, 70% of these bonds are obligations of our purchase capacity customers and are being repaid by them. The remaining 30% is an obligation of two of our full-service areas, those being Pleasant Hill and Polk County. We do have some new information from Spear Financial showing what the bid results are. I guess we'll go into those once we get into the actual bid results. I jumped again there, sorry about that. Our recommended action is to have the 6 adoptions acted on. They're listed in the recommended action box there. Attached are the resolutions, and we will not be reading those word for word today, but they will be attached in whole as part of the board minutes. So with that,
Okay. So first, we'll open a public hearing for written or oral objections to the issuance of not to exceed $5,600,000 water revenue refunding bond series 2012A.
we have not received any written or oral objections.
We'll close the hearing. Could I have a motion for a roll call vote to adopt the resolution instituting proceedings to take additional action for the issuance of not to exceed $5,600,000 water revenue funding bonds, Series 2012A?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussions? All in favor then? Oh, I'm sorry.
David Carlson,
In favor? Aye.
Leslie Gearhart,
Aye.
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Susan Hubbard.
Aye.
The motion passes. See, we have, I'll have the public hearing for written or oral objections to the issuance of not to exceed $47,500,000 water revenue refunding bond, Series 2012B.
We have not received any written or oral objections.
We'll close the hearing. Do I have a motion for a vote on the resolution instituting proceedings to take action for the issuance of not to exceed $47,500 water revenue bonds, Series 2012B?
So moved.
Can we, friendly amendment, $47,500,000?
Sorry.
Please,
Okay, you seconded?
accept that friendly amendment?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Any discussion? We have a roll call vote?
David Carlson,
Yes?
Leslie Gearhart,
Aye.
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Susan Hubbard.
Aye.
Okay, we now need one more motion.
Receipt of the bids.
Okay, okay. Yeah, the receipt.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad.
You're correct.
Okay. To adopt the resolution approving the post-insurance compliance policy?
No.
In the wrong one.
Electronic.
Procedures and efficiency.
The bidding.
Dave, I move that we
Okay.
take by roll call vote a resolution approving electronic bidding procedures and the official statement.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? We'll have a roll call vote.
David Carlson,
Yes?
Leslie Gearhart,
Aye.
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Susan Hubbard.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll have the receipt of bids.
Yes, we have Larry Berger here with us today from Spear Financial, and I think he's got some good news to share.
I've got some
Good.
wonderful news to share. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Larry Berger from Spear Financial. I won't take a lot of your time, and I did lay a lot of paperwork in front of you for your review, but when we start this process out, just because the bond market is so low, that's why we suggested to the waterworks that we refund out both of these bonds. And you'll see in just a second that it was the right decision by the board of directors to go forward with it. But in doing so, you are rated by both Standard & Poor's and Moody's rating services. We do carry a double rating for the waterworks. This is very important that we always maintain a double rating. And I laid copies of these in front of you. I will not go through them, but I did highlight a couple of areas that you want to pay attention to. You are rated one step below the highest rating that both organizations offer. And so that is just an excellent, excellent rating for the waterworks. And there's always the challenge that we can get up to a AAA, and in the future we'll keep working towards that. But if you want to just take that and take a look at it again, I did highlight some of the areas that you want to pay attention to. They even give you a direction on how you can move the rating up and some warnings on how the rating may go down. So take a look at that. We did take bids today electronically, as you just approved, in Peggy's office this morning. And on both the 2012 Series A, we did, as Gary indicated, had about a $530,000 projected savings on this one. And as you can see by the cover letter, we did receive 5 bids. And the low bid we will be recommending is Robert W. Baird of Red Bank, New Jersey. They must have moved. They used to be in New York, but they must have moved, I see today. And the bid came in with what we call a premium. Now, a premium is that they want to set the interest rates a little higher than what the market will bear. And so instead of taking a discount or a commission to resell the bond, they actually pay you more money than the bond, the face values of the bonds. And they set the interest rates. Now, this all calculates into the low bid, but almost everybody that bid today bid a premium. So by doing so, because these are refundings and we only need so much money to call in the old bonds, we have the right to lower the amount that we're going to issue, thus giving you more savings because now you're issuing less bonds at the interest rate. So with all of that said, instead of issuing $4,755,000, we reduced this issue down to $4,605,000, giving you actually a gross savings. Now this is net to the waterworks. This is after all of the costs have taken out of actually $889,000, $889,434, but present value. By the time you pay off the bonds, the present value calculation calculates down to $742,451, or a 15.63% savings on the refunded principal. Our standard before we'll recommend a refunding is 2%. So you can see you exceeded the 2% standard that we have. We did have 5 bids. If you just turn the page and look at what we call the bid and bidders list right behind the handout that I just gave you, you can see we did have 5 bids, but the top bid actually put together a syndicate of 20 bidders. Now, they do this because of the fact that what they do is they don't want the whole amount, so they all join together instead of bidding separately. So basically, we had 20 bidders in this. Off to the right, you can see their original bid was a 1.601, but then by reducing it because of the premium, it actually came down to a 1.57. Just an excellent, excellent interest rate in the market. If you look at the second low, BMO, Capital Markets of Chicago, actually they came in at a 1.61, just above the low bid, but that's actually $44,000 in interest costs if we would have taken that bid. You've got to take the low bid. So you can see how narrow the bidding is as far as percentages are concerned, but how much the dollar amount that is related to. So overall, in this Series A, we had actually 26 bids, and high to low bidding, although it was very tight, we saved about $72,000 in the interest cost from the high bid to the low bid. I did include behind that all of your bid forms that we took today electronically. I did the last 4 pages of this handout. I showed you your old bond issue running from 3.75 to 4 1/4, and it looks something like this. And it's the 4th from the back page. Behind that now is your new bond issue, 2% up to 2.125. And then the final sheet that looks like this is your savings sheet proving up that the net present value savings right down at the bottom is $742,000 of net present value savings. And then the very last sheet is your new debt service schedule. And just one other point, I think it was suggested by you, Mr. Chair, that we look into shortening these issues. We did shorten them by 1 year, and we took advantage, and that did add to the savings because the shorter the financing, just like anything else, if you finance it longer, you pay higher interest rates. And so we did shorten it by 1 year. I think Peggy took a survey of all of the participants of the other waterworks, and they were fine with that. So we did take advantage of that. With that, I would turn back to the cover page and recommend that we sell $4,605,000 of water revenue refunding bond series 2012A to Robert W. Baird and Company of Red Bank, New Jersey for a true interest rate of 1.5776. I would answer any questions on this one, and then we can go on to the next one if you would like. Great day in the market.
That's great.
You need a motion to that effect?
We'll do the motions later. Are you going to?
If you would like me to go on with the second one?
Because all of the motions, there's 3 more motions to go, so we can do this
Okay.
second one.
You want it, now this is the thicker packet because I believe in the 20 years I've been with Spear Financial, you just broke my record for the number of bids that we received. I believed you had the old record because when we originally issued this, we had 9 bids. As you can see from the cover sheet, we got 15 bids today. So they were coming in, and thank goodness they're all electronic because they just pop up on the board and I don't have to take them over the phone like I used to. But this one, again, was bid with a premium. Everybody that bid today was with a premium. And so again, they wanted to raise the interest rates a little bit, and so what they do is they give you, at closing, they give you more cash than even the face value of the bond. This premium ran from $3.5 million, and the top bid, which we can't accept, was like $7.9 million that they were going to give you to raise these interest rates. Highest premiums I've ever seen in a bidding situation also. So with that, we actually went into the market selling $42,950,000 in Series 2000. Because we will accept the low bid from BMO Capital Markets of Chicago. With a premium, that lowered that $42,950 down to $39,400. So again, we reduced the dollar amount that we're going to issue because of the premium. And if you will recall, we were looking at about a $2.5 million savings. That now, a gross savings of $4.760, $4,760,056, and a net present value savings, the aging of money again, at $3,762,239 for a 9.46% savings of the refunded principal. Again, our standard is 2%. If you look at the bids here, they were very tight. It goes from actually the original bid coming in at a 1.8399 to a 2%. So although we had 15 bids, they were very, very tight. But the difference in those bids between the low and the second, if you just turn the page from the cover sheet, First Southwest Dallas bid a 1.87. We're going to award this at a 1.81. Only 5.5 basis points. A basis point is 1/100th of a percent. 5.5 basis, but that actually is $682,000. And so when you get up into the $42 million range, it really makes a difference when you look at the percentages. As you can see, we did have 15 bidders here, and actually high to low, the low being $5,360,000 in interest costs. We actually saved about $1.8 million from high to low in the interest cost in the bidding today. Again, but very tight bidding in there, as you can see on the percentages. I did include behind that all of the bid forms that came in again today, and the last 4 pages of this handout. I included a copy of your original debt service schedule, which the interest rates range from 4% to a 4.375. And in 06, those were great interest rates. They were very low. And then in today's interest rate, because of, again, of the premium, 2% to 3%. And then the last pages, and we had to put this on 2, so the second from the last page, again, looks like this, shows you that your net present value savings of $3,762,238, or a 9.464% of refunded principal. The last sheet is your new debt service schedule, which you will be paying from in the future. With that, I would turn back to the cover sheet and recommend we sell $39,400,000 in water revenue refunding bonds, Series 2012B, to BMO Capital Markets, Chicago, Illinois, for a true interest rate of 1.8166. I would answer any questions that you have. Great day in the market.
That's fantastic.
It is.
Did you shorten the time on the last one?
We did on both of them. We shortened them. We could shorten them by maintaining the payment around the same level. We shortened them both 1 year.
Great.
Dave, I will move the resolution directing the sale of the water revenue refunding bonds, Series 2012A.
Second?
Second.
Any other discussion? We'll have a roll call vote.
David Carlson,
Yes?
Leslie Gearhart,
Aye.
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Susan Hubbard.
Aye.
The motion passes. You want to make the second motion?
Sure, I would move to resolve the directing the sale of the water revenue refunding bonds, Series 2012B.
Second.
Any discussion? We'll have a roll call vote.
David Carlson,
Aye?
Leslie Gearhart,
Aye.
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Susan Hubbard.
Aye.
Motion passes. We have one more motion, and that's a roll call vote for the resolution approving post-insurance compliance policy. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? We'll have a roll call vote.
David Carlson,
Aye?
Leslie Gearhart,
Aye.
Graham Gillette,
Aye.
James Grant,
Aye.
Susan Hubbard.
Aye.
Motion passes. I think that concludes everything. Is that right, Gary?
That's great.
That's wonderful. That's
Great job.
fantastic. And so we're going to make sure that we present this at the next CERDWAC meeting, and so everybody can hear what we've saved. That's great.
Thank you.
And we will be, just for the record, we will be soon sending out to the participants in the bond issues their respective new debt service schedules. So they are all expecting them.
And just one other issue, you will have additional documents from the bonding attorney now that we have approved the sale tonight. Now he'll do his paperwork. I believe at your next board meeting.
That is correct.
And so it's just the paperwork has to get done now that we know the rates today. So.
Great. I think it'd be real good if you came, Peggy, and explained so that everybody at the CERDWAC can hear what we've done. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Guess we'll go to item C, and that's the Des Moines Water Works pension plan. Gary?
Yes, we have an update on the memo on that. The only thing that has changed on the new memo is the board required action. As you recall, at the September 11th Finance and Audit Committee meeting, the committee recommended that the board freeze participation in the Des Moines Water Works pension plan by limiting pension participation to current employees. This would mean that new employees will not be eligible to participate in the pension plan, but by law they will be covered by IPERS. The Finance and Audit Committee recommends that participation in the Water Works pension plan be limited to current employees, with new employees to be excluded from eligibility and thus covered by IPERS. And this is going to be a two-part move or motion. First part is to just participation, that participation in the pension plan will be limited to current employees, and that the plan will be amended to freeze participation. And then when we go into the pension plan meeting, we'll actually adopt that amendment to the plan.
And we'll have a meeting immediately
Yes, you
after
close this
board
meeting and open up the pension plan meeting to take care of that.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I want to make sure that we know that this is only one part of the issue that we really need to deal with on the pension plan. In the discussion that we had at the finance meeting, we did not want a new CEO coming in, having to be the heavy when we all know that we have an issue that we need to deal with here.
Oh, he's plenty capable.
Plenty capable of it. However, we know that this is an area for our financial stability going forward that we must address, and this is one way to ensure that at least for those new employees coming in, that we are addressing this issue. But in no way does this mean that this addresses the entire problem that we have, and we'll be looking to our new CEO for some ideas and things that we tossed around in the meeting that I know Peggy will be getting with Mr. Stowe upon his arrival, and coming back to us with maybe a recommended course of action for how we would handle the huge contributions this year, $3.2 million that we are having to make to the pension plan. So we look forward to you jumping into this one, Mr. Stowe, and giving us your recommendation.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Go to item D, request approval of execute enterprise asset management project change order number 6.
Yes, this one item was also discussed at the September Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and we were alerted that a kind of a lack of availability of central stores and IT staff had created a slippage in the Phase 2 schedule for this. To prevent further delay in this completion schedule, steering committee requested that we get an estimate for assistance with the development work, which had previously been assigned to Des Moines Water Works staff to complete. The proposal that we did receive from the consultant team to complete this work is estimated at $54,560. These funds would come from a contingency fund that was approved as part of this original contract in the amount of $73,272.50. So that money would come from that part of the contract. We would move or make a motion to, or we would recommend that the board authorize the execution of change order form C0CO number 6 in the amount of $54,560 to provide a developer resource to work on the interfaces of Phase 2 of the EM project.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Part of this delay, I want to say as a responsibility of the board, the IT group tried to bring this forward at the August meeting, and as all of you know, we were thick in deliberations about hiring our new CEO. And so although the attempt was made to bring it forward a month earlier, we were not available to bring that to this full board. So we're a little bit behind, but I wanted to make sure that all of you know it was because of our finance meeting.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Request approval to execute Rimini Street Amendment number 2.
Yes, this one as well was discussed at the August Finance and Audit Committee meeting. Rimini Street has provided service for our PeopleSoft financials as well as the human resources systems. And at the time when we entered that back in 2009, it was about 50% savings over what we had experienced previously with Oracle. Rimini Street has offered a reduced cost if we do a 2-year pay ahead next year. And you can see there, if we stay on our current payment plan, the total for the next 3 years would be $179,500. And if we do the 2-year pay ahead, it's reduced down to $167,000, almost $900. 2-year savings about $11,600. They've added a little caveat in that if we get this amendment signed by November 30th, they'll throw in an extra month of support at the tail end, which is about a $4,900, $5,000 savings. So total savings by agreeing to this amendment today would be $16,658. So we'd recommend that you authorize the chairperson to execute the Rimini Streets Amendment number 2.
Do I hear a motion?
Move.
Second?
Second.
Discussion?
Why does it cost so much to run these programs?
It's the support that they provide, any updates that might come along, as well as just addressing with issues that might be out there. It's kind of a consulting type.
What about our
activity.
IT people? We have a whole team of IT people, and we got to spend this much money on these programs?
Jason, you want to address that?
Sure. They actually they actually make changes to the program to account for law, changes in the law and changes in the tax code. So every year there's additional development that has to occur on the source code of the system itself. And we don't do that internally. We've never done that internally with an internal resource. We keep this contract in place so they support it. They also do any of our kind of day-to-day support. If we have something that isn't working the way that it's supposed to do, they're kind of our go-to. This contract allows us to go to them to get all of that support. The cost of the
So
support-
we don't really support it, they do, is that what you're saying?
Well, we support it from the frontline perspective. They support it if we have to go into the code and do actual development. So we'll do things that are related to administration of the system, setup of the system, those kinds of things, and some work with data. They all do the work when it has to do with changing the way the actual program functions. The cost of the maintenance contract is based on the cost of the software that was originally purchased in 1999. So it's a percentage of that original purchase, which was $2 million.
That's a lot to run. Right.
Do you anticipate to put this out to bid at the end of this contract? You think that'll be the right time?
We're not sure, because what they keep doing is, they kind of set a target when they want to kind of sunset some of the older programs. They loosely say that it needs to occur around 10 years after the original release of the software. But what they find is that the market and people using the software tend to move a little slower than that, so they end up extending it. This is one time where they've already extended it beyond what we originally thought we were going to get. So we could be looking at 2017, 2018 potentially to keep using the software if it's possible. We'll continue to use it as long as it's fitting our business needs, and as long as they'll continue to support it, give us the updates that we need. It's costing us the least it's ever cost us right now. We're kind of in the sweet period of ownership of the PeopleSoft resource. All the money is sunk. Now we have this small amount that we pay for maintenance on an annual basis to go.
Jason, did you call around and just check with other support organizations? I know Oracle, I can understand. I mean, you were able to get the Rimini Street at half. Oracle's probably comes with a premium. But did you, check with like the city or
We did
anyone
at the
else to
time-
see
at
if
the
there,
time
or
that we
Polk
originally
County
went
to
market
see?
look for support, we went out to several different vendors, and Rimini had the best, most attractive support contract offer. We're actually in the contract. This is just going to
Yeah.
make it.
What I'm wondering is the cost of all of them coming down, all of the support for software, and that there may in fact be a competitive environment out there for this kind of support of our PeopleSoft financial software.
Yes, and at the end of this contract, we have the option to go to market again and look at it again. We are amending the contract to pay year 4 and 5 ahead. Year 6 is already optional.
The city of Des Moines does use Rimini. Actually, that's where we got the idea from originally. So, at the time that we moved from PeopleSoft support to Rimini, and I'm going to speak for Jason simply because he wasn't on staff at that time. I'm not going to say they were the only ones in the market, but the concept of outside support for the PeopleSoft product was relatively new, and there weren't a lot of others in the market. There probably are today, but certainly at that time, I'm not going to say they were the only one, but it's not like there were tons of vendors to choose from.
They were staffed, the company, by the way, was created by a former PeopleSoft employee, so they have strong background in the source code, understanding the source code, and the city took the same path as Waterworks, which was first. I don't know, maybe we made them first by a year or so, but the savings was similar, probably more than half as much. It was over $100,000 that we were paying for software support from PeopleSoft some 5 or 6 years ago.
Their initial pricing was actually flat out half of whatever you had been paying under your PeopleSoft support contract. They cut it in half. That was the initial price they offered us.
And we've had excellent service from Rimini. They've been great to work with. They've been very responsive. Staff, business loves them, so we're very happy with the contract.
And as Jason indicated, unfortunately, the federal government does change tax tables and tax code virtually every year, so there are a number of updates, at least to the payroll system, that are required every year. Sometimes they change them and change them back.
Is it my understanding that we have an existing contract, and this is just an agreement to pay forward, so we save money in the
Save some
payment?
money.
It is. It's an amendment to the existing contract.
So we're under
We are
contract
under
with them right now?
Absolutely.
So that's not the debate, right?
No.
But they need the money now.
We'll take the savings.
I hope. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item F, Moffett Farm Ground License Agreement Extension.
Yes, as you probably well know, the Des Moines Waterworks owns approximately 1,500 acres of property adjacent to and north of the Mappa Reservoir out there. Of that, about 160 acres were designated as tillable farm ground, and in the past we've leased that for that type of activity. Over the course of the last 5 years, we've decreased that by about 60 acres of land that was susceptible to flooding. And so now we currently have about 100 acres that we do the farm leases for. We publicly bid that back in 2009, and we received at that time 3 bids. The bids were $120 an acre, $165, and $261, starting in crop year 2010. At that time, the license agreement was issued to Vernon and Kelly Flynn at that $261 rate. Since then, the board has extended that for 2 additional 1-year terms. This year, the Flynns came to us and offered that if we would extend it for another year, that they would actually increase the rent by 7% up to $280 an acre. So at the $200 an acre figure for the roughly 100 acres, we would receive about $228,000 of revenue for the coming year. With that, we would ask the board to authorize the chairperson to execute the license agreement extension for the right to farm Des Moines Waterworks agricultural land for the 2013 crop year.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
I'm just curious, what does farmland go for an acre? I mean, they were paying $261. Was that a great deal? Is $280 average? What's the market bear?
In this area, I think it's around $214, $220 an acre.
Yeah, it's over 200 as an average throughout the state of Iowa, is my understanding. I don't know the exact dollar amount, but we feel that 280, especially compared to the other 2 bids that we had before, is very attractive and above average. And likely is above average because the Flynn's farm immediately adjacent to this, and it's an extremely convenient additional 100 acres. They're very interested in it. They were requesting the opportunity to bid for a long time while we had a contract with another producer. And as of right now, we're not aware that anyone else is especially interested. But our impression is that this is an above average rate and a good rate.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
The planning committee did look at this at our last meeting and concurred with the staff recommendation at that time.
And I think we're going to look at the land around at the next planning meeting for some
Right.
plantings.
Yeah, the land that we took out of farm.
Mhm.
Something that would be compatible and good stewards of the land. Okay, do I have a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item G, acceptance of water main flood damage repairs.
Yes, back in the May 2011 board meeting, the Waterworks awarded a contract to Underground Company in the amount of $223,443, and this was to do some water main flood damage repairs. We had 5 creek crossings that during the flood of 2008, we lost enough ground that we either had the pipe exposed or we did not have the amount of cover that we need over those pipes to keep them from freezing in the wintertime. So those were all approved by FEMA at the time, and so we awarded the contract based on that FEMA approval. During the course contract, we had 3 change orders that were negotiated. Change order number 1 was to make repairs in an additional creek crossing where the water main again was too shallow. We actually had that as a project that was submitted to and approved by FEMA, but at the time we awarded the contract, we were still under negotiations with DOT on exactly how they wanted us to design that. So we had the funding in place, but we could not get the design completed until after the contract was awarded. So once a contract was awarded, we just added that as a change order to that original contract. Change order number 2 was to place some additional erosion control at a cost of $2,000. And then change order number 3 was something that we needed to help flush the system out once we installed it at one of the creek crossings. And so we added a hydrant there that had a cost of $5,980. All work related to this contract has been completed, and the change orders, along with the additions and corrections to the variations of the estimated quantities, ends up with a resultant contract price amount of $245,042.70, which is roughly $600 or 9% above the original contract amount. This is being paid for by FEMA at a 90% ratio from state or federal, and then 10% from the state of Iowa. We do have that funding in place, and we have not had any indication at all that they will de-obligate those funds. We do have part of the contract amount that we will be responsible for, and that's in the amount of $15,000. In a couple cases, we increased the water main size from the original 8 to 12. They don't pay for that upgrading, so we pay for that difference. And then the hydrant that we added to help us in flushing that main out before we put it in service was also added to the original what was there before, so we have that cost to bear. So with that, we would recommend that you accept the water main flood damage repairs contract completed by Underground Company Limited in the amount of $245,042.70.
Do I hear a motion?
Move.
Second.
Discussion. Okay. No discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item H, request authorization to reestablish the date of the public hearing for 2012 McMullen Water Treatment Plant South Flow Meter as the date of the October 2012 board meeting.
Yes, we came to the board in August to authorize staff to solicit bids and set the public hearing for today's board meeting. Plans and specs and documents were taken out by 14 bidders, and you see the 5 bids that we did get there. Okay, 5 bids. Engineer's estimate for this project, unfortunately, was $41,000. The low bid was $52,000. But there's other things that we need to add to that price, work that we are doing internally with our water production staff. And if you add all that stuff together, the total cost comes to about $75,000 to $76,000, and that would be comparable, unfortunately, to our $41,600. Because of that overage, staff would like some more time to investigate what other alternatives might be out there, and or determine if the benefits of constructing this flow meter are justified by the higher costs. So we would ask for authorization ask for permission to authorize staff to reestablish the date of the public hearing for the 2012 McMullen Water Treatment Plant South Flow Meter Bulb as the date of the October 2012 board meeting.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
And direct publications provided by law.
And direct publications.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item I, WRA easements for sanitary sewer on Waterworks Park property.
I won't tell any jokes about the WRA at this point in time. We have been working with them.
But you will later.
Or he has before.
Well, that's a given.
We have been working with WRA on a sanitary sewer that they need to construct, and it runs through the far west edge of the Waterworks Park out there. We have an agreement or easements in hand that they have been prepared. I don't have copies of those for you. They were prepared by city staff, and then our legal review has worked on those, and we're still, I think, making some final
I have a copy.
modifications. Okay. There's a map in the information here, and I do have a slight update to that to hand out here today. Once the documents that you have in the board packet were generated, the contractor came up with a change that he wanted to propose as far as the easements are concerned. The original game plan, and I'll speak to this board up here and you can kind of follow along on the ones that you guessed there. The original game plan called for a temporary easement and a temporary road that would give them access back to our park. And that was to be installed at the far west edge of the soccer complex that we rent out. And then they were going to hook into the park road and do their work back there. They have since decided that they would like to change that, and they are currently working with the Ruan people to gain access through their property, and then they would cross into our property, into our road at this point in time here. So we really have two temporary easements and one permanent easement that we're going to be working with. The one permanent or one temporary easement is, and it's the wider lines out there. That's just the area that they need to actually do the construction. Once the construction is done, then we'll go back to the smaller permanent easement. So you can see that the temporary easement north of the river and then south of the river, and then the other leg would be this option to go through the soccer field for the access road. And they'll either do that or they'll do this little one in the corner here. And that's going to be decided later based on their negotiations with Ruan and how that all takes care. So what we would like to do today, since construction, they would like to start this very soon. And so what we'd like to do today is get permission to award the temporary easements, which would be this piece, and then either this one or that one. And then set the public hearing for the permanent easement at next month's board meeting. And that would be the smaller easement that would just cover this red line. That's where the sewer leaves our property and comes off to the west. So the permanent easement would start at this point here and just go up toward the north edge of our the Waterworks property up there.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item J, agreement for West Des Moines Waterworks connection.
Yes, West Des Moines Waterworks desires to make a new connection on the Waterworks feeder main down at Army Post Road and at the intersection of South 22nd Street there. They propose to make two connections. We have a 30-inch line valve in that feeder main, and they would like to make a connection on either side of that valve. And from there, it would go into a 24-inch feeder main and go south down to Maffett Lake Road. And they're going to, their plan is to construct a temporary pump station at that site, and then they would have a 16-inch feeder main that would go on Maffett Lake Road over to South 20th, and then down South 20th Street to some property that a developer owns, and that's where they want to ultimately get the water service to. We had started, prior to this project there, we had started working on design of that 24-inch feeder main because we were originally heading towards a three-party agreement, which had been West Des Moines, Norwalk, and Cumming to build that feeder main down there. So since we had already started to work on that, West Des Moines Waterworks asked us to complete the design of that 24-inch feeder main and then do the survey work on the other feeder main, and then they would reimburse us for our cost to do that. So financial impact of Des Moines Waterworks ultimately will be zero, as the West Des Moines Waterworks will reimburse us for all of our work on that. So we would ask for approval and authorization of the CEO and general manager to execute the agreement for West Des Moines Waterworks connection to Des Moines Waterworks transmission main at Army Post Road and South 22nd Street, once all of the legal reviews are complete.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
West Des Moines, are they purchasing about 40% of their water right now from us? 40% of their consumption?
I don't know about percentages, no. One thing I did hear is they exceeded their purchase capacity by about $1.5 million this year, so they did.
I honestly don't know, Sue, without checking.
Okay.
I would think that'd be fairly close, because I think their treatment plant capacity is about 10 MGD.
Okay.
So I would assume.
I would say it's at least 40%.
Yeah.
Okay.
If anything, it might be higher.
Yeah.
Again, on an average, that might be more accurate, recognizing that for a lot of the year, your peak to average, there's a big difference. So perhaps on an average basis, that would be correct.
And while we're doing this, and we look at additional service, say to Winterset, is there any additional need for us to put additional lines in there?
Well, not so much for Winterset, but this line is still being sized to ultimately help both Cumming and Norwalk out with a second connection. They're building it with enough capacity that they could sell some of that capacity at a later date to those two entities.
That West Des Moines could?
That's correct. Yeah, West Des Moines is going to own this. And part of the agreement is to specify that if Cumming and Norwalk want to come in there, they will sit down and talk with us and help us work on an agreement to have them purchase into this property, or this facilities that they're putting in right now.
And why would we not sell water directly to Norwalk and Cumming?
Well, this is very similar to like that joint east side tank that we did out there, where we had 3 parties that went in on a feeder main and the tower, and we have the booster station yet to build. Cumming is not contiguous to us, so we almost have to go through West Des Moines to get to them. And so rather than build a feeder main that only serves Cumming, there's a lot of financial benefit for everybody as far as the dollars per gallon goes down as your pipe gets bigger. And so there's a lot of benefit to them to be in a 3-party agreement like this versus doing something on their own.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
We have discussed this several times at the planning committee meetings, and I think at the last meeting we did encourage staff to move forward with this.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item K, CEO Retention Incentive Plan.
Yes, Section 6 of the CEO and General Manager's employment contract outlines a retention incentive plan in which the one-time contribution will be made. A non-qualified 457F retirement plan will be established for this contribution. The board, in order to do that, the board must adopt a resolution authorizing the plan, and that resolution is attached to the memo here. So we would ask the board to adopt the resolution authorizing the establishment of the non-qualified 457F retirement plan.
So,
Second?
Discussion?
could I comment that the actual plan and the adoption agreement for the plan is still under development with Principal Financial Group? I have a rough version of it. The resolution says it's presented at the meeting. I wonder if we could treat my rough copy as presented at the meeting, and then we'll bring the final documents to a subsequent board meeting for confirmation once it's all.
But the amount's not going to change. It's,
The amount doesn't change. It's the legal technicalities
Words.
of the vesting schedule and so on.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We'll have our information items. We'll start with our committee reports. Jim on planning.
At our last planning committee meeting, we kind of combined it and put our timing so that the finance and audit could join the meeting at the end of our last item, because it was beneficial for both of us to discuss it. Most of the items that we discussed were on the agenda today. A couple of them that we did not discuss as a part of the agenda today was the total service that's being proposed for the Polk County Rural Water District Number 1. And I assume that is continuing to come forward, and at some point, we'll have it on an agenda for approval if it comes to fruition, that they agree to have the Des Moines Water Works provide that total service. So we're looking at it, staff is working with them on it, and hopefully that will come forward in a short time. We also looked at the HVAC in the water distribution area, and we discussed how the staff could possibly move forward with a contract and inform us if it's under the amount that they can approve, inform us, but to go through a semi-bidding series to get the amount that would be included. They need to have the HVAC system improved, and so we're just talking about hiring a consultant to do that design work. We also talked about the service line maintenance agreement, and that's where the Finance and Audit Committee came together with us so that both of us could discuss it at the same time. And I think you're all aware of where we are on that. They're moving forward with HomeServe USA to bring a contract in October to the full board, which I think is really good.
I think that was about it. Sue, would you like to talk about finance and audit?
Sure, we approved several of the things that came forward, but it's that time of year, so we did review water rates again, as well as the relationship that has to our overall budget. Gary brought forward a preliminary budget in the 1 to 1.2% increase over last year's budget. So with our pumpage being up, and we started to look at the relationship of what the cost of service will be and the budget, I think we are in a good place as we go into October, which would be the period of time when we approve the budget or the rates, and then November our actual budget. So we're making progress on that. I believe everyone attended the meeting, so you know where we are. And then health insurance, we had an interesting discussion on the health insurance, and we're continuing to move ahead with looking at what our renewal rates will be, and of course that will have an impact on our budget as well. But the other things we've already approved.
Okay, thank you, Sue. Graham, would you like to talk about the Greater Des Moines Botanical Garden Foundation?
Absolutely. Things are progressing over there for them to take control of the facility at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, I should say. I did mention, Bill, that with you starting, that we should have a meeting with them, maybe you and I, maybe Peggy, if that makes sense, go over just to make sure you're up to speed on where that transition is to go. I don't foresee any problems there or anything the board needs to address, but since we are kind of at that critical handoff time, so if you can think about a date when that's good for you, that would make sense.
I would mention, we'll be doing a formal termination of the 2080 agreement, I think, at some point between now and the end of the year, if everything, as you say, goes according to the plan.
Right. And I don't know the ins and outs, nor is it really pertinent here, but I know there's some employee issues that are being decided about our employees that are over there, and that's all in process, and I don't see any real red flags there, but we just need you to get on that. That's all I've got on that.
We have that, don't call it a formal termination.
No, that's actually a good thing. That
sounds like
a great thing. The right thing is happening.
Formal handoff.
Yeah, that sounds better. Okay, I guess, Gary, would you like to have some comments?
Sure. As you may recall, Randy mentioned in his comments last month that we had a hypo spill out at the LP Moon facility, and it had just occurred that morning of the 28th, and so he didn't have a whole lot of details at that time, but Mike has graciously filled me in with all of the details on that. We did have about 340 gallons of hypo that leaked from our storage tank out there. It came because of a sight glass on the side of the tank that became dislodged. Under normal circumstances, any liquid that would flow on the floor would go over to the floor drain. From the floor drain, it goes to a 1,500-gallon underground tank, and then from there it flows into a sanitary lift station, which pumps it out into the sanitary sewer. Unfortunately, we discovered that we had damage at that holding tank at the spot where the pipe connected to it. And because of that, the hypo liquid was able to seep through the ground and into what we have out there is a huge stormwater detention basin. Once we discovered that liquid was out there, we went ahead and plugged the drain. Mike and his staff called DNR. They came out to the site. They suggested, they agreed with our approach of plugging the drain. They also suggested that maybe just going ahead and flushing the floor drain and the subsequent ground in the detention basin with just finished water. So we started that flushing, went out the next day, tested the water that was in the detention basin, and it had a chlorine residual of 0.0. So we were able to go ahead and open the drain and let that liquid go ahead and go down the natural creekway that goes from there. The sight glass has been repaired, and the holding tank has been completely replaced with a new one and replumbed into the system. So we're back in good shape, or the shape that we need to be in. Mike has submitted all the reports that are necessary to submit to DNR, and recently they have stated that they do not anticipate taking any type of violation action against us for this particular occurrence. So, any questions about that at all? Okay. Next item I had was just a quick update on pumpage. Mike gave us some figures at our supervisor meeting this morning, and noted that we had 2.5 billion gallons of pumpage in the month of August. That was the record month of all time. And in addition to that, you mentioned that the 11 days contiguous from July 16th through July 24th, which are 11 days, those 11 days fell into our top 14 days ever. So not only did we hit a peak, but that peak lasted for quite a while. So we should have some good pumpage figures by the end of the year. And if I recall right, if we're on target for the rest of the months, we're going to be around 18 billion for the year. So
the rest of the year is normal. Don't be alarmed at 18 billion.
What percent is that greater than last year?
We were at 16.9. 16.9 last year. It's pretty good. Not quite 10%.
What Rick was asking is that has a very positive impact for Des Moines Waterworks on our revenue for the next year, in that 6 of our purchase capacity customers did exceed their purchase capacity amount for the contract. And so what that means is, effective January 1, we will ahead of time calculate a rate. It will become effective January 1 for them that is greater than what the normal purchase capacity rate would be. In simple terms, it's a blended rate. We look at how much purchase capacity they've purchased and that rate, and how much they exceeded by, and compute for each of them a different rate. And those will go into effect January 1. So we will see some additional revenue, lingering effects, additional revenue throughout all of 2013.
I just had one other item, unfortunately not good news. We received notice last Tuesday that FEMA has denied our second appeal. Came as kind of a shock. We had earlier received a letter from Senator Harkin's office saying that they had gotten a letter that was dated August 31st from FEMA, stating that they would use an expert committee to review our appeal data. They would issue a report, and then FEMA would take a look at that report, make their decision, and then notify us accordingly. When we did get the information from FEMA, neither the letter nor the report that was attached to it made any reference to this committee that supposedly reviewed the appeal, and they did not include a copy of this report that was supposed to be generated based on that technical review. So I have asked officially Homeland Security staff to get us a copy of that report, as well as who was on the technical review committee. And then we sent copies of that request to Senator Harkin, Senator Grassley's office, as well as Congressman Latham and Boswell to say, can you kind of help us try to endeavor to get a copy of that report and a list of who the technical experts were. I'm a little, I guess, iffy on my opinion as to whether they really did a technical review or not, and if they did, how substantial that was. So that's something we'd like to see. And depending upon what we see, we may ask for that technical review if we can, if it hasn't already been done. But we'll wait and see what we get and decide what our next steps in this whole process.
How long do we have for an appeal or anything?
The second appeal is the end of the official process.
We're done at the administrative level. The next step would be to go either to the federal district court or to the court of claims at Washington, D.C., or both. There's no specified time for bringing that action, but we want to bring it promptly. It's my view that it's a proceeding we should give very careful consideration to and probably go to court on, particularly for the part of the grant for which the work was done before they de-obligated the funds. They've taken the position that they have the mandatory obligation to de-obligate the funds because the project was never qualified for the grant. That hard and fast position, though, may give rise to a claim that we can make in court, because ordinarily grants are considered discretionary. You can't force them to give you a grant. But I think when they've given you a grant and then decide later to take it away, that may be reviewable in court, and we're going to be looking at that. I've started some discussions with the Attorney General's office on this, since technically speaking, we're a sub-grantee and the state is the grantee, so we'd be working with them to develop the pursuit of a remedy.
Could you refresh the board the amount of monies these were?
The total grants were in excess of $7 million, and I think we expended around $2 million before they de-obligated. Now, of course, you have the work, that you just didn't get the expected federal support from the work you were going to get. And the grants for which the work has not been done still leaves the work that needs to be done as a result of the floods. So it's a pretty substantial financial issue for us.
What have you heard back from Senator Harkin's office?
We just sent that out yesterday, the information that we had passed on. We faxed it to them. They say that the email or faxing is the best snail mail.
So you haven't heard anything?
Haven't heard anything back yet.
Because I'll be interested to hear what their response is, saying there's a disconnect there from what they told them and what they received. And of course you can't put too much emphasis on the dates, but the letter that FEMA sent to Harkin's office said August 31st, and yet the letter that they sent saying that we're denying your obligation was 11 days later. Right.
And if indeed that was the start of the review, that's an awful tight time frame to have a review completed, a report generated, and then somebody review that report and make the determination to deny.
Would it?
That sounds a little funny.
I would have thought that they had a technical report, they would have included that in the documents, or at least mentioned it in their letter that we had this technical report and we reviewed it and here's our decision, but it was not mentioned in one sentence, in one word that
I'll be
existed.
interested to hear what you received back from both the senators and the congressman.
Okay.
Because I think the board, if we need to encourage Senator Harkin in particular to follow up on his letter,
okay.
I think we should do that.
Okay. I'll let you know as soon as I hear him.
Keep us on email, let us know right away.
I'll do that.
Okay. Let's go to something that's more cheerful. We've got item G, the Polk County Water and Land Legacy Bond. Maybe we can try out our new CEO and he can tell us what he knows.
Thank you. And first, let me acknowledge and publicly thank Gary for the work he's done as interim CEO. Always a challenge to be the bridge between two folks, and Gary has done an extraordinary job. I've only been here for a couple of days, but he and all the waterworks staff have been very helpful in orienting me, but Gary's leadership, very important, and I'm going to continue to rely on him no matter what we call him here in the next several years. So thank you for that, Gary. Thank you very much. More than anything, I wanted to include this item on your agenda simply to get a read from you as to board support for this referendum, bond referendum, which will be on the Polk County ballot in November of this year. for the general election. This is essentially asking voters for approval to sell $50 million in bonds that essentially will be used for conservation-related issues through the Polk County Conservation Board, purchase of buffer areas around the Raccoon and Des Moines rivers and around 4 Mile Creek in Polk County, as well as some extensive trail work. But the advocacy group supporting it has contacted Waterworks staff and essentially asked if we have an interest in participating in their media campaign, not financially, but in terms of offering our support in whatever form that would take. And more than anything, I want to give you the opportunity to raise concerns about that. We can certainly say to the advocates that we have really a neutral position, but I think staff's inclination is supportive of the idea of greater buffers around our source waters that obviously will support the quality of drinking water that we supply to the region. So essentially this is a kind of a gut check from you as to whether you want Des Moines Waterworks actively involved in supporting this bond referendum or not. This is to be distinguished, incidentally, from a statewide initiative that involves incremental sales tax for conservation purposes that was on, I believe, 2 years ago. Perhaps it was 4. But this is Polk County only and goes to Polk County Conservation Board projects throughout Polk County.
Any thoughts from any board members?
So what's proposed is that we would basically lend our name as a supporting entity.
That's right, Graham. They've essentially, they've started a media campaign that involved Tom Haddon as an example from Metro Waste Authority. They've come to us and said essentially, do you, me, want to say good things about this? My intention would not be to say vote yes, because I think that puts us in a relatively awkward political position as being an advocate, but realistically the media campaign would be funded by those who are saying vote yes. We would simply talk about the benefits to water quality from buffers.
Have we done anything like this in the past?
I'm not aware.
We've had some discussion at this board talking about not wanting to be involved in political campaigns, but certainly talking about the benefits of our source water is a different situation than having our logo on campaign signs or anything else, which I don't think we want to go there. But
This is a little different. I mean, we have great concern about our source water and about the buffer zones and everything else. I would think that we would lend our support to it because we have big concerns about all that.
Conceptually, I think it's a very good idea to provide, the development or non-development, so to speak, that they're talking about and the improvements that they would like to make. So conceptually, I think that it fits right in with the direction that we've been going. I agree that we don't want to become an advocate of a yes vote, but
right.
Supportive of the concept, I think, is okay.
Just to be clear, we're walking a very thin line because the media campaign that will have the Des Moines Waterworks logo and talk about the CEO or the general manager of Des Moines Waterworks saying things is going to be funded by the advocacy groups for this. It's a thin line. Realistically, I don't think there is any question among the staff as to the importance of these kind of initiatives, but I have to say that I'll be very cautious on your behalf, not to say, vote no or vote yes on November 6th. That's not what we're going to do. But certainly the educated part of this, I think, is pretty important, and the voters can do what the voters choose to do, obviously.
Right. This kind of thing did come up on the constitutional amendment that was proposed, and I believe it was requested the board endorse the action. My recollection isn't absolutely clear, but I think perhaps the board took some action that was carefully worded to support, but not endorse. We can research what the minutes were. And it's quite clear that you can't make a financial contribution or anything like that. You can exercise speech, but you can't spend money.
And this is 100% conservation. This isn't 1/10% or 0.5% or something. This is just total conservation. issue here.
Well, and I'm comfortable with the educational part that you'll do in that, so.
Very good. Thank you for your time, and again, thanks to Gary for the great work he's done as interim director.
Well, and I'd like to say, Bill, welcome. We're glad you're here, and also echo what you said about Gary. We do appreciate you stepping in and doing that. It was a nice transition.
I think we had one other item, schedule of board activities.
Yeah, the schedule's in the last page of the section 4 there. We're on target to have the planning committee meeting on the 2nd, the finance and audit committee meeting on the 9th, and then the board meeting on the 23rd. And we have draft agendas. First one is the planning.
Gary, I do have a conflict on the 9th. I don't expect you to change the meeting, but I will be out of town.
Okay.
So if you want to go ahead, that's fine, if someone else can share it, or if you want to move it to the 16th, the following Tuesday.
Following Tuesday.
I get back to the next day.
Would that be okay with you, Grant?
I'm just looking at
Leslie?
What's that?
If we skipped it to the next Tuesday?
Probably. Just a second.
I think it's important.
You know, for the subject matter that we're covering, I think
I should be, I'm going to be out of town that Monday, but I should be back on Tuesday.
16.
Yeah.
Jim, are you planning on coming for that one?
The finance and audit?
It's on the 9th.
I have no idea what I'm doing on the 9th.
They're talking about moving it to the 16th.
So
That'd be fine with
Oh,
me,
I-
that doesn't.
On the
Oh, thank
16th of
Fine
October?
with me.
16th.
Does that work for Peggy?
You
I have
see.
no idea.
Is that okay, then the 16th? Okay.
Just to get that resolved.
Okay, I guess that is set, unless anybody wanted to add any items to it. Okay, anybody else like to say anything for the good of the cause, or? I guess the meeting's adjourned. September 25th, the Des Moines Waterworks Board of Trustees for the Waterworks Pension Plan. It is 5:10. We'll call the meeting to order. We have one item. It's an amendment to the Des Moines Waterworks Pension Plan.
Yes, the board had previously approved the approach of freezing the participation in the Des Moines Waterworks pension plan by limiting participation to the current employees. That action does require an amendment to the pension plan. That amendment is attached behind the pink board memo there with the approach of freezing participation in the plan. And the date that this is set up to take effect is September 26, 2012, which will be tomorrow.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion. I think we've discussed it, and we'll have, previously, we'll have a vote, a roll call vote.
Just regular.
Just a regular vote? Okay. Is that all in favor? Oh, yeah. Could we have any discussion from the public? Sorry. We need to do that. Any other discussion from the board? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Yes, we adjourn the meeting.